All right, so today we get Akshay here. I'm not going to make a big introduction because that's up to you to make that big introduction because I know I talk about you for an hour. We kind of got connected pretty much serendipitously, if that's even a word, on Twitter. You
Yeah.
know, I remember that we kind of like got. I don't. I have no idea how that happened, but I know we kind of like chatted back and forth, and we're like,
Yeah.
hey, why don't we jump on a call? And then when you flew to Switzerland,
I
when
came to
you
you. Yeah.
exactly you stayed at my place, when you were running through every country in the world, that was
Yeah.
like really big stuff. So I just want to like hear a little bit about like who are you, and then we're gonna dive a little bit into your story.
Sure, sure. So, I mean, yeah, so who I am now, I'm a Marine Corps veteran. That's a big part of who I am. I'm an adventurer, very much into outdoor sports, as you mentioned, running, ultra running, mountain climbing, and I obviously an entrepreneur as well. I've started my own business and now I'm growing that. And I've just recently started my own nonprofit. So I'm up to many different things, and I'm working on essentially building up in all those elements of the mind, body, heart, spirit, finances, and then ultimately helping other people do the same as well. So that's kind of the larger vision of where I'm going. And then under this umbrella of what I'm doing with my book, I have all kinds of avenues of where I want to go with it that I'm happy to go into more detail as we discuss, as we go into the conversation.
Yeah, I think adventure is a really good term. That's also one that I would use, to describe you. You've done some crazy stuff. You know, doing coaching calls with people on the Himalaya when you were
Yeah,
trekking there. So let's dive a little bit into your story. What happened over the past
sure.
couple of years? What did you build over the last couple of years?
Yeah, so a little bit, so since I got out of the Marine Corps, that's when I had to kind of figure out, okay, what next? Because a part of me initially wanted to spend my career in the Marines. And as after going to Iraq, I decided I'm done with this. It was one of those experiences I'm happy I did, but I'm also happy I don't have to do again. And so through the Marines, I started pushing myself physically, discovering new ways to test myself. That was a very natural segue into the personal development world because, again, it's all about growing all the physical is about pushing I believe, it's about pushing your mind. It's growing psychologically. That's what physical development is really about. So that's when I got into personal development. That's what got me into coaching and then helping other people master their psychology through the Marines. Because before that, I struggled with drugs for a long time. So once I got out of drugs, I joined the Marines, and that was a natural selection into sort of pushing myself, in all the mind, body, heart, and spirit. And then after coming back from Iraq, I struggled again. I had some struggles with alcohol, got to the point that I was actually on the brink of suicide. I mean, I just was drinking to myself to the point that I never, thought this would never end. And that was obviously a pretty dark point in my life. And when I got out of that is when I realized, okay, I got to do something differently. And I started reading just book after book on neuroscience, on psychology, and really mastering my own psychology and helping other people do the same as I grew my business. So that's what got me into this world. And since then, business has been great. I've been fortunate, as you said, to work from places like while I was running across Luxembourg and Malta, I get to work with clients, working from a yacht in the Caribbean, working from India now. I'm currently speaking to you from India, Singapore. So really from all over the world. And I've been fortunate to be able to serve other people while being able to build a lifestyle that I'm very, very happy with. Been married now 5 years, which I'm very, very happy about that as well. We have a great relationship with my wife. We travel the world together, and we get to push ourselves individually as well. So it's been a good journey so far to get me where I'm at. And I've hit this point now that I'm launching my book, and this is time to take it to the next level. So I've kind of slowly been, moving up the ladder and happy where I'm at, but now it's ready to keep growing.
Tell me about the book. What's the book about?
The book is about this concept I created called, well, my wife came up with the terminology. I'd love to steal credit for it. But it's essentially the philosophy that I really live my life by, which the terminology is called Fearvana. The idea is fear and nirvana, which are two seemingly contradictory subjects, right? Fear and nirvana being bliss or that state of enlightenment. And people don't often connect the two with fear. But in my life, as I'm sure you can relate to, is that the greatest things I've done were the hardest things I've done, the scariest things I've done. It was scary to quit a job and start a business. It was scary to run across countries, to join the Marines, to go to war, to ski across an ice cap. These are all scary, scary things, but we don't grow unless we push ourselves into fear. And, in fact, in one of the largest studies ever conducted on happiness by the psychologist named Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, I don't know, have you read his book, Flow, The Psychology of Optimal Experience?
I haven't. No.
It's a great book anyway, so if you get a chance, check it out. But in this study, he says of all the virtues we can learn, no trait is more essential for survival, more likely to improve the quality of life, and more essential for our growth than the ability to transform adversity into an enjoyable challenge. And this was conducted on study of happiness from thousands of people all across the globe, across cultures. And then he kind of goes really in more depth into that. Ultimately, what does it mean to be happy? And he says that often that times of our happiness is not that passive, relaxing times. It's that moments when we push our body and mind and spirit to the limits and beyond. So Fearvana is that concept. It's that ability to embrace your fears and to seek out a worthy struggle in order to find the bliss that lies on the other side of it. So the book is about this concept of Fearvana, and I go into the neuroscience, into the psychology. I share some of my own stories. I share some stories from other people who've done really amazing things. And these are not, I mean, a few people are just celebrities, famous people you would heard of, but many of them are not, which is really cool, that they're just, people you've never heard these stories before, but amazing, amazing things that they've done. And so using stories, psychology, science, spirituality, I go into this concept and show people how to embrace Fearvana within themselves.
I love that. I love that you also, created this word, right? Because it's yours now. And
yeah,
and this is, I mean, you know about this, you've done that in the past. You're really good at that. But it's just like something that a lot of people don't. A lot of people just try to assemble a couple of titles and words that other people have used. But when we come up with these, when we create, right? When we really create from the essence, and creating from the essence is not taking other people's stuff and putting two words together or something like that, but really creating something unique, like a unique description, like what you just created, or whatever that may be. And that's always inspiring. It's like, because it's creation, right? It's really, really inspiring. So I'm really excited to see the book. Very, very excited.
Thank you.
It's going to be helpful for a lot of people in my audience as well. I have a lot of coaching, consulting, business people, a lot of leaders in my audience. So that's going to be great. So what else are you up to right now?
So along with the book, I'm launching that Memorial Day of 2017. So until then, I've started a nonprofit called Fearvana Foundation. So the nonprofit is going very much hand in hand with this project that we briefly touched on. It's sort of a lifelong project of mine to run across every country in the world. And with that project, there's sort of two goals to that. There's the self goal, which is my internal self, is, to push my own limits, to see the world. I think I love exploring new places, meeting new people. I mean, I got to spend an evening with you in Switzerland. That was awesome. So I love that. That's my self goal. But the greater than self goal is to unite people. We live in a world, as we're seeing, there's a lot of violence, a lot of scary things happening out there. And through this run, I've already seen personally that we can bring out more of the good. And I think this idea of Fearvana is it has the ability to shed the sense of otherness, which is really at the root of the heart of all conflict. Because when we struggle together, when we suffer together, when we play together, and Fearvana is kind of the molding of this suffering and play, which sports is really the essence of that. It brings us together. We unite in that, we connect in that, which sheds that otherness. I see you as I see me, in that shared misery, which I've gone through in boot camp. I have many stories like that in my runs of people, like just strangers I've seen who see me suffering and welcome me into their home for water, and things like that, because we connect. It sheds that sort of that the fakeness of what doesn't matter what our religion, our race, our nationality, whatever. We're all part of that same human family. So that's the big project that really everything is about. In fact, the proceeds from my book are going to my nonprofit, and everything is going to be, that's really my larger vision for the rest of my life it's one of these things. I don't know if I'll actually end up running across every country, but it's not so much about the destination. It's about the journey, So it's focusing on the journey and ultimately the service work we can do. So as I run across certain countries, I'll be doing work on the ground to fuel certain nonprofit projects. It's kind of a grassroots level to create this enduring peace by building sense of communities. I think that addressing all these global challenges that we're seeing starts on a foundation of peace. When we come together, we can work together to address these. We live in a globalized world, good, bad, whatever it is, the realities we do. And we have to come together. So that's what really I want to do. And to do that is to shed that sense of otherness, really getting into the heart of where conflict starts, and having personally experienced that, on sort of directly on the ground, I have an intimate relationship to conflict and the desire to end it, really. So Absolutely. That's really what this is all about.
Absolutely. And I think that's also one of the points that really brings us together, that kind of like is that connection, because this is really about making humanity a more human place again. It's really it's all about that. I had this great conversation with a university professor yesterday who's she's doing a study on communication, on authentic communication compared to sort of like manipulative communication. And I'm one of the experts in the case study or in the study that she's doing. And we were talking, and we went from talking about a study to creating sort of a movement that enables, people to communicate in a more human way again. And it just completely changed the conversation. So I think that's really also what that connection is really all about. That's one of the key things that we also share with each other. So tell me a bit more about, you mentioned, tell me a bit more about what you're doing to bring this vision to life. You mentioned TED, you mentioned the TEDx style talks in India. You mentioned the book, you mentioned the foundation. How does that, first, I guess the question is, how does that all work together? How does that all come together, or all these different separate things that you're building?
Yeah, in some sense, they're separate. In some sense, they're all together. Sort of the vision is, what Sir Richard Branson is to Virgin, I want to be to Fearvana. So in the last year and a half to 2 years, I was somewhat in a cave to write my book. I had some struggles with that. Writing the book brought out a lot of my own internal stuff from the war, because I was using my own stories in that. So it took me a little while, maybe longer than I'd like, but it is what it is. And I wrote the book. So now I'm just essentially coming out of the cave as the book is written. And for the next 9 months, I'll be essentially building up the platform. I have some cool connections already developed to help promote the book. But as I mentioned, this next month, the great way to get out of this cave is I'm speaking at what's called Ink Talks. It's India's version of TED. And in fact, the founder of Ink Talks is a friend of the founder of TED, and the founder of TED helped her start this in India. So it's a really cool platform for me and the people I'll be connecting with to get out there and share this idea of Fearvana. And then from there to start growing it. And then next year, I also put the running on hold, actually since that Europe trip where we connected in person. I've put the running on hold to finish my book. So next year I'll be back on the run. And when I do that, I'm going to be getting out there publicity-wise. On my runs, I want to be getting a lot of stories from the grassroots and sharing these stories. As you know, the power of stories to unite and connect people, right? So bring these stories, have people really start connecting it and building it just one step at a time, essentially marketing, if you will. But through that, marketing strategies, but through that also be funneling all of that into the nonprofit and having the run fuel with my current business, which is the coaching. I'll be building information products and speaking, but eventually it'll be funneled into different segments of under the Fearvana umbrella. The larger vision, where sort of the 5-year vision where I want to grow into, is create this mass global communities, in-person communities, not just online. Because there's positives and negatives to this online Facebook world. And one of the negatives I see is that we're losing actual communication skills, as I'm sure you can relate. We're just so online communicate, like on Facebook. We're not actually learning how to connect in a deeper way. So what I want to do is create these Club Fearvana, these communities all over the world. As I'm running across these places, speaking to places, building a structured way for people to connect. So it's not just a networking event where everybody comes in and just kind of mingles about. It's a structured way, kind of like a Toastmasters for personal development with the service angle, if you want to call it that sense. So right now the structure is being built. Again, it's a matter of focusing. You can see it. There's many different things I'm working on. So it's really a matter of focusing on one step at a time to not get myself all over the place. But what I'm doing is building the structures, and that's the 5-year vision, is to build these and have that keep growing. So what I want it to be is Fearvana is extending beyond my lifetime. Obviously, I like all human beings, I'm going to die soon, and I want Fearvana to be something that lives beyond me. So it's not about me. It's about this idea. It's about this thing, that can hopefully bring people together and stay that way as we, as humanity keeps evolving and hopefully in a positive way.
Where do you get all that energy from? It's like, because every single time I talk to you, have this incredible, peak performance energy, and I know that's kind of like your field as well. But it's like, where do you get all of that from? Is it just like, where do you get all of that from?
Yeah, it's hard sometimes. I'm not going to lie. It's hard. My big thing, as you can tell, with working on so many things, you've got to stay immense. Out of the biggest lessons, probably one of the biggest lessons I've learned in my life, I've gone through my journeys you have to stay immensely clear on what you want to do. Otherwise, that energy gets drained in that decision fatigue, as I'm sure you're well, the willpower depletion. If you're constantly making decisions on what to do, those little decisions, and I'm talking small decisions, make an impact on your psychology. So constant clarity. I have a thing that I use. I plan my day. I track my day. I track my week. I track my month. I have yearly goals. So I'm trying to always stay, I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I'm working on staying immensely clear on constantly what the next step is, so that I'm not wasting any cognitive and physical energy. So that's one element. And two, I mean, I do not work with anybody. I cannot recommend this enough as exercise. I mean, Richard Branson himself said that his key to productivity in, working with building 200 companies is exercise. So I train, as you know, I mean, I'm running across countries, but I train like a maniac. I train with Jim Jones. They're considered the most hardcore gym in the world. They train the actors from the movie 300. They train Navy SEALs. They train Marines. They trained the new Superman movie. So I train with their gym. And so those are really the two, is just keeping very clear on what I got to do. And then, and constantly daily exercise. That's what keeps me on top of my game.
So I'm really curious, because I'm an organized guy as well. But how do you plan and track your days? What kind of measurements do you use? Because I'm really curious about that. Like, because in order to build something that big, in order to build something that lasts as a legacy beyond your lifetime, you got to be a little bit organized and focused. So tell me a bit about that, about the tracking and organizing.
Sure. And again, like I said, I'm not perfect. It's a constant work in progress. Where I'm at now, I think it's, I'm liking where it's working right now. In fact, I can pull up what I have, what I call a day. I sort of use military lingo because that, being the Marine, it helps me. But what I do, and I learned this strategy from Jack Canfield, is a top 5 of the day. So I have an accountability partner. What we do is we just text each other our top 5 tasks for the day. So every day we have 5 clear, specific actions to work on. And those actions will be related to essentially my weekly goal, my monthly goal, my yearly goal. So what I like to do is, whether it be end of the year or your birthday, whatever, arbitrary measure you want to come up with. End of the year obviously makes sense. What are my yearly goals and a 5-year goal, and have a sort of umbrella vision. So the umbrella vision that I like to define for my life is to achieve mastery in self and others. And what that means is I'm constantly focusing. That's really the high umbrella, which everything should fall under, right? So, is what I'm doing working towards that? And then one thing I've learned from Jack Canfield is the top 5 tasks. Another thing that I've learned from Marshall Goldsmith, who wrote the New York Times bestselling book Triggers, another great book if you haven't read it already, is what he does is he came up with these 6 questions. I forget how he phrased it, but I kind of tweaked it a little bit, called, did I give it my best to? And on a 1 to 10 scale, you rate yourself. So at the end of every day, you can come up with any questions, but the 6 that he has is: set clear goals, make progress toward my goals, find meaning, be happy, build positive relationships, and be fully engaged. So every day, on a scale of 1 to 10, did I give it my best to? And I'll rate those things. And then I have other things that I've come up with for my own personal goals. And so you can come up with your own. So I have a list of questions. In fact, I have it open here. Things like, did I give it my best to train hard and suffer well, what I call suffer well. If you learn how to suffer beautifully, you can really achieve mastery. Did I give it my best to recover, meditate, eat healthy, create content, learn something new, grow my business, visualize the process of facing my obstacles, push my limits, and engage my fears. So that's a one way for me personally to do that, is to track, did I give it my best? And 1 to 10 makes it quantifiable. Right now it's measurable. And then actually, and at the end of that, what I do is, if it's not a 10, what would have made it a 10? So, and that's where you get your own self-awareness, because there's no ultimately, I mean, if I meditate for 12 minutes a day, to me, that's a 10 on meditation. To other people, 12 minutes might not be enough, but it's my own measure, right? So that's one structure. And I'm happy to send you and share with your audience anything, all the daily planner, the weekly planner, the monthly that I use and that I've learned. Again, it's not just something I entirely came up with, that I've learned. And then I have, training plan is I have like the top 5, my training plan. Then every day I have a check. Did I review my monthly goals, my weekly goals, my yesterday's debrief? So, at the end of every day in the morning, what did I do well yesterday? What can I improve upon? So constantly saying, maybe I forgot to meditate. Let me make sure I'm on point of that today, So, and then my month, what I call a monthly Fearvana challenge. So for every month, I like to create a theme for that month.
How do you make sure that you're not kind of like getting stuck with the details? Because, like with the planning and the organizing and the tracking, it sounds like there's a lot of things that you're doing to track, to kind of organize, like, with the daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, 5-year kind of making sure umbrella, everything. So how do you make sure you're not getting too much, you're not getting stuck
with bogged down?
Yeah, and like overwhelmed with, moving and looking at, does it really make sense? Is it that, you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. I think when you have the clarity, so that's where, like I mentioned, I start with the umbrella for what the life theme, if you will. That if I were to say, on the day I died, what would I want written on my tombstone, right? So that life theme is the umbrella. And then working back from there with the 5 year, 1 year. So now if I have clarity, I don't have to think about that anymore. Then from there, so once I have a larger vision, then it's about then it's about getting clear on what the smaller steps are. So all I'm thinking about is the next step. Does that make sense? I'm no longer thinking about the larger vision. When I say review it, it just basically means focusing it to make sure I'm on track. Like if all of a sudden I'm suddenly doing something that's not related to that, I just want to be present to that. Because as you know, I mean, you're someone who's organized, you're focused, but the challenge we all go through, and believe me, I've gone through this, is we can go about our day and next thing you know, the day's gone and we're not even sure where it went. I mean, what did I actually achieve this day? We just go about our day on autopilot. So to stay present, I actually have a phone tracking app, a time tracker, a habit tracker. This is called the Seinfeld strategy. Jerry Seinfeld came up with it when he was learning, where he marks an X on every day where he was writing. You might have heard about, So I use it for green dots. There's an app on my phone with green dots if I'm tracking certain habits. So I guess to answer your question, the minutiae, I don't get bogged down in it because it takes a few minutes. It doesn't take very long for me to do this at the end of the day and in the morning. It just takes a few minutes, but those few minutes are totally worth it in terms of getting focus on the rest of my day. So I'm not wasting time. Does that make sense? That ultimately so those few minutes of planning keep me focused on where I got to spend the hour, the minutes of my day. And again, I'm not perfect on it. Sometimes things come in the way. As you know, life happens, and you have to adjust. So I'm not always great at it, but this allows me some structure. So I don't get too bogged down in the minutiae because I have that clarity of the yearly and the monthly. So once I have that monthly, I'm no longer thinking about it. I don't have to think about anything else. I'll just look back on it just to keep checking in to make sure I'm present to it. But then I know, for example, right now, in terms of my fitness, everything is related to a 50-miler I want to work on to the end of the year. There's a November 5th, I want to do a 50-mile race. So I don't have to now think about, once I hit that goal, then I'll come up with the next one, right? But everything I do is towards that. So now I don't have to waste cognitive energy on that. In terms of my business, the very next step is finishing the final edits of my book I have to read. So I'm not doing anything until I finish that. There's one more reread I have left, and then I'll focus on the next goal. You know what I mean? So it's really just getting clarity. Like I know I don't have to do anything beyond that. And one part about that, just to kind of echo, is today we are bombarded by content. And when we see other people's emails, when we see what people are up to, it's hard to not get distracted. You have to, in fact, when I'm in these, I just don't try not to read people's emails. I focus on inspiration when I need it, because otherwise if I see somebody with a podcast have 100,000 downloads, suddenly I'll start to think, oh, well, should I start a podcast? And then I'll be like, whoa, don't do that. And I know a lot of people struggle with that sort of shiny light syndrome, right? The entrepreneurial shiny light syndrome. So, and the great example of this is in the Olympics. There's a picture which you might have seen, this meme of Michael Phelps swimming the butterfly, and Chad Leclos he was right behind him, and he's looking towards Michael Phelps, and Michael Phelps is just looking forward. And there was this kind of a meme that I saw that it said, winners focus ahead and losers look at the winners, right? Something like that. But the point being is that you sometimes have to just shut out this bombardment of information, because when you compare yourself, you're comparing yourself to other people at their best. Nobody's necessarily showing you their worst, right? So you want to sometimes just ignore that. Use it as inspiration when and if you need it. So if I need it, I'll look at the inspiration of Bobby Maximus from Jim Jones, or a runner or a business, whatever the inspiration when I need it. But otherwise, I'm shutting it all out and I'm focusing on my target. Does that make sense?
Absolutely does. Yeah, I think that is huge. And also, especially what you shared before, is with the big umbrella and then focusing on the next step. I think that is really, really, really big, because for me, the big umbrella is I want to create a more connected and a more human business world. That is my umbrella, and everything that I create along the way is under that umbrella. And if it's not, then it's I wouldn't even touch it. There's no point of even thinking about this. And I guess there's an even bigger umbrella than that, because the umbrella is eventually it's life, right? But that's kind of the business umbrella. And I love that you say, especially when you have the monthly goals, or the next bigger milestone, like the 50-mile run or the book. Once you got that clarity, then it's in that sort of area of book or whatever, or audience, whatever, in that field, that key milestone, that. Thing is the book. Okay, so does what I do today contribute to that milestone? And if not, there's no point. because we can
Exactly.
you know, it's I guess it's also about a balance of focusing on things that get me to the next milestone, and then also having that third eye that kind of looks out for what's going to happen beyond that, because there may be opportunities coming your way that may not contribute to that next milestone, but to the next one beyond that you don't even know yet that you're gonna, like with your TED talk, for example, or with your talk in India that you're giving now. You may not see, okay, this is something that gets me to the next milestone, but you already know in your third eye, at the back of your mind, that it's going to get you to that bigger vision, or closer to that bigger vision. So it's something that you embrace. So I think that's also kind of a balance to strike.
No, I love the way you put it. You put it perfectly. And that's where I think it's important to review or to have those yearly goals. So you're exactly what you're saying, that, if I'm here clear on the year and the 5 year, I know that I can at least have some sense of, okay, is this connected to that next step, the bigger goal? Because obviously with so many different things, it's, we want to do a nonprofit, want to run the world, want to have a book, want to do this information product. You got all these things happening. You got to stay present, and is one connected to the other, and how, and staying present. So I think you put it perfectly, of having that third eye, focused on all sides, so you're at least present.
And also, here's another thing, like you probably encounter people who say, well, but you're working on a lot of different things, and you may not even feel that way, because the thing is, all these things that you're creating go under that one umbrella. And because of that, it probably doesn't feel that completely overwhelming, because it feels overwhelming if we're trying to run in all different kinds of direction. But what you're doing, and also what I'm trying to focus on, is always, we're focusing running in one direction. And if we do that, we can also take on many more things, because we know that when we have project X and project Y, if we only get 20% of project Y done, it's also contributing to project X and to project Z at the same time, because they're all working together. So it's leverage, a lot of leverage involved as well, if we're running in that one direction.
Yeah, no, I love it. Exactly, totally true, And one thing in terms of those monthly challenges that I talk about, these Fearvana challenges I created, another way to do that is chunk it on a weekly basis. You can do a theme for the day. So, for example, one day on the weekend, I know is my long run day, So my entire day is essentially devoted to that long run. And I know that after that, I'm usually pretty beat. I don't have much energy. So I give myself this space to not work on my business on the day. So I have a theme for that day, You can create weekly themes, daily themes, and in the degree to what specificity you want to go. There's no right or wrong way. It's ultimately what works for you. But I try to, again, that's where I'm constant. It's a constant work in progress to get better about chunking that time. As I finish now the writing the book, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have 1 or 2 days where it's devoted purely to writing content for my blog or for guest blogs, things like that. So it'll be, chunking those days and having a theme for each day and stuff like that. To keep it all focused and heading towards that one focused vision.
I love that. So, just to end this, do you feel there's another really, really, really key lesson that you've learned over the years?
Yeah, I think other than the clarity, the other one that I feel is, just biggest thing I've learned is really developing a positive relationship to suffering, to call it struggle, to suffering, to fear, whatever you want, because no matter what goal you want to achieve, whether it's business, physical, relationship, there's going to be struggles. And struggle, fear, adversity, stress, anxiety, these words don't have a positive association in the global lexicon, right? I mean, you say them, what do people think? They don't think positive, they think negative. And that's what Fearvana is all about too, is shifting that. We all know the power of words. Tony Robbins talks about, everybody knows words have a very powerful impact on our psychology. Yeah, is that these words have, and no matter what you want to do, I think it's just, you really got to start developing that. And that really is nothing more. It's what I've discovered in my life is success in any endeavor is really, it's not easy, but it's simple. It is very simple. It's just not easy. And I think the umbrella of or the core of that success is being able to struggle. I mean, it's not easy sitting at a computer for hours on end writing a book, or sitting on end doing internet marketing, None of these things, as you know, I mean, you built a business yourself, it's not easy. And I think developing that is really, really vital. And that just comes with a matter of practice. And it's also just choosing to, like, coming with an attitude of having fun with struggle, playful, bringing a playful attitude to struggle. And that's why I think exercise is such a good way to do that, as so many entrepreneurs will echo, as I'm sure you can relate to as well, as exercise gives you a tangible way to embrace struggle. If you're running, there's a clear goal. It's a 5 miles, 3 miles. If you're working out, lifting a bar, there's like something very tangible about the struggle in there that then you can metaphorically translate to other areas of your life. So I would say that's in terms of mine is, when you develop a positive relationship struggle, it also leads to action. Because you can't struggle without acting. I mean, really, the struggle comes from that action. So it echoes actually, just to touch on a lesson I've learned from Jack Canfield in his interviews for thousands of entrepreneurs. He said that the 3 lessons he found in successful entrepreneurs was, one was that immense clarity of purpose, clarity of vision. The other was taking 100% responsibility. So that's really not blaming the economy, blaming other people. It's choosing, no matter what happens, you control your behavior or you can control your attitude. So that's taking 100%. And the third one is taking action. So those are his lessons, and in some ways that echo what I'm saying, is that taking action is that relationship to struggle. So those are the big ones, and the clarity, as I mentioned as well.
Yeah, that's a pretty good framework as well. I love that. So just to finish this, where can people connect with you? Where can people find you? What's the best kind of like place if people are interested and say, hey, here's something that we could work on together. Maybe somebody's interested in working with you, as a high performance coach. Maybe somebody's interested in supporting you, in the running around the world on the local side. Who knows? There's always something that comes. Where can people connect with you?
Sure. Right now, my main website is existing2living.com. That's the word existing, the number 2living.com. And over there's a contact form. So that's my main website. And soon, once the book is all ready, there'll be a fearvana.com website as well related to the book. So those are all kind of being built out right now. But existing2living.com has my contact information right on there. And cool. I'm happy to connect and serve in any way I can.
Great. So I'm going to link to that below the video. And just want to thank you for doing that with me. Thanks so much for sharing your vision of what you're creating and all the lessons learned. I really appreciate it.
Likewise. And thanks for this conversation. It's been really cool.
Thanks, Akshay. Take care.
You too.
Bye.